What's up everybody, it's me, your favorite little boy in the whole wide world, Ren with 2 N's. And it's no secret that I really haven't been a huge fan of Call of Duty over the years. But don't get me wrong, I've almost always enjoyed running through the campaigns and nabbing those sweet achievements. But the multiplayer in this franchise has never managed to hook me. I was always more of a Halo guy, you know? But for this year's Call of Duty, things are different. For the first time in 14 years? Infinity Ward developed an entirely new engine for the game. So with that in mind, my interest was piqued. And I figured that this would be the perfect time to give Call of Duty another honest shot. So I got the game, chugged down some of that delicious Mountain Dew for that sweet double XP. And I borrowed my friend's night vision goggles so that I could play the game with the monitor turned off. How cool is that? But we're getting off topic. The new engine really adds a lot to the overall experience. Shooting Ruskies feels fantastic. The sound design is better than ever, the weapon recoil and reload animations are sexy enough to give even women a full-blown erection, and the new graphics are as gorgeous as a woman that didn't grow a penis. The game looks and feels great, so I was surprised to see that the audience is slamming this game on Metacritic, with harsh, brutal criticisms like, "Game's physics is disgusting, the colors are not real, and the characters are perverted." Jesus Christ! Prominent Call of Duty YouTubers are exceptionally unhappy with the current multiplayer meta and map design, and Spec Ops was flat out broken for the first 2 weeks, and it still got some issues. While many of these complaints are perfectly valid, even as harsh a critic as myself can't help but feel that a 2.5 is incredibly unfair. So let's dissect this game piece by piece and see what might be pissing people off. The first thing that really stood out to me was that they really stepped up their presentation within the cutscenes. One thing I never liked about previous Call of Duties was those loading screen briefs. You know, where you were treated to a bunch of animated graphs while a voiceover dumped you with exposition? Those never interested me, so as a result I would always end up skipping the cutscenes. Which was no good, because then I wouldn't always know what was going on in the story. Luckily though, that really isn't how they do things anymore. There's almost no loading screen briefs, and whenever one does show up, it's not for long. The loading screen briefs have instead been replaced by actual cutscenes, and they're not bad. This is definitely a big step up for the franchise. The cutscenes look good, they got a little bit of style to them, they keep the story moving along nice and brisk, and I never felt the urge to skip them. And that smooth transition from cutscene to gameplay also made them feel more organic. But despite having a brand new engine, not much has changed. For the most part, this still feels like a COD campaign through and through. It's got the usual little annoyances here and there. You know, you gotta wait until characters stop monologuing to progress the mission for you, or you gotta wait for an NPC to open up pathways for you to progress, and it is a bit too linear and handholdy for my tastes. Like at the end of the first mission, we were packing up the chemicals we just stole and it was time to leave. So I instinctively went to the driver's side of this vehicle to drive us away, but that's not what was in the script. Instead, I meant to be a passenger of a different vehicle to trigger the cutscene. This was sort of a running theme for me throughout a lot of the campaign. Sometimes I would know what to do way before the game told me to do it, which would result in me sort of goofing the game up a little bit. I'm stuck. But that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy the campaign, because despite its restrictions, it still improves on the Call of Duty formula quite a bit. Some of the combat encounters give you these relatively open arenas with smartly placed cover. You have a lot of places to hide here, you've got a lot of angles of attack, which give you more options during combat. It felt very freeing, because, you know, previous campaigns sort of just had you walking through tight corridors a lot of the time, and while this campaign's linearity is restrictive, there are a few segments that release the shackles by giving you 2 or 3 objectives to complete within a relatively open area. And you can tackle these objectives in whatever order you want to. Like in this mission here, there's 3 buildings you gotta kill all the hostiles in. The order of the buildings you clear is up to you, and you have a lot of options as well. If you want, you can shut the power off for a more stealthy approach, or you can leave the lights on and go in guns blazing. Both tactics are perfectly viable. Certain buildings in these sections have multiple points of entry as well, like this one for instance. You can enter the building through multiple doors, or even from below ground through the catacombs. Now, this sort of level design isn't groundbreaking by any means, but it is for Call of Duty. And I think this is a fantastic innovation for the series. Even on a smaller scale, in the Piccadilly mission there are these neat little dynamic moments that you can completely miss, like rescuing hostages in a clothing store. Little touches like this make the game feel more alive. And the fact that there isn't a waypoint constantly telling you where to go at all times encourages exploration. This is definitely a massive step in the right direction for Call of Duty campaigns. And Modern Warfare also offers a good amount of variety. It'll take you from a shootout in Piccadilly, to piloting RC planes outfitted with C4, to guiding a civilian to safety via security cameras, to a classic sniping section, to a slow, methodical stealth mission that has you cautiously moving from room to room, clearing out hostiles. But not everybody is an enemy. You never know who might go for a gun and return fire. Keeps you on your toes. I could have sworn that this infant was gunning for me. And they try to get tricky with you. Sometimes they'll be hiding in a closet like the Act Man. Sometimes they'll dive under the bed. These people are desperate, and it shows in their tactics. You never know where they'll be hiding. Until, of course, they kill you and you restart the checkpoint. Then you'll know exactly where they'll be, and it's cake. But still, even with the checkpoint system in place, these segments are tense, and they kept me engaged throughout. But that isn't the only new ground Modern Warfare broke. For the first time in Call of Duty history, they had us solve a puzzle. Now granted, it was a very simplistic physics puzzle that a toddler could complete. I was flabbergasted when a puzzle was introduced to me. As far as I can remember, this is the only puzzle to exist within a Call of Duty campaign, right? I mean, by all means, if I'm wrong, let me know down below, but this is something I'd like to see more of going forward. One big gripe I have about the campaign is that the AI is really just not good. Now, I can't concretely prove this, but I'm almost positive that each individual enemy combatant just follows a set script. Like, this guy is always going to run out and take cover in the same spot without fail. And I think this goes for most of, if not all of the enemies in the game. And to be clear, I played this on veteran difficulty, like I always does. Whenever I complain about AI, people like to accuse me of playing on easy mode, but that's never the case. So even on veteran, where the AI should ideally be at its smartest, I feel like the enemies never tried to flank me unless it was baked into that specific mission. This sniping segment here is the only one that comes to mind. At a certain point, it was clear that the enemies were programmed to go behind me. I didn't feel that they were necessarily flanking me, but instead just going to the one spot they were programmed to go to. Early on in my playthrough, I was constantly checking my back to make sure nobody was sneaking up behind me, and nobody ever was. There's really not much dynamism to the enemy's behavior. They run at you, they take cover, and they'll move away from grenades. It's pretty standard stuff. You might not think that lackluster AI is a very big deal, but imagine going up against an elite group of highly trained enemies who use textbook tactics to try and kill you. Like, one of them will suppress you with gunfire or a flashbang, while the other 4 advance on your position. Imagine going up against an enemy that genuinely communicates with one another in an attempt to find your location and wipe you out. Imagine going up against an enemy that even does something as simple as trying to flank you. Enemies like this would really keep you on your toes and require some real effort from the player to defeat them. I think that'd be awesome. Now, I always complain about bad AI because a good enemy combatant, like the elites in Halo Reach, adds so much replay value to a single player experience. Good AI is really important, and there's so many games that just sleep on it these days. I think it's kind of a shame. I'd also like to bring something up that I'd imagine most people won't talk about, but it's something that this game nailed, and it's something that I haven't seen many other games get right in a good while, which is the achievements. Yeah, I know, I see you rolling your eyes back there, but just hear me out. What some of these achievements do is encourage you to play differently, like the one that requires you to kill an enemy with a smoke grenade. Just little things like this can go a long way for me. They add an extra layer of engagement since I'm now looking out for opportunities to unlock achievements like destroy a helicopter with a Molotov. And achievements like this one, which requires you to grab one cinder block at the beginning of the level and carry that one all the way to the end of the mission, it's good for replay value. And I can see how you might think that I'm overvaluing these achievements, but if it weren't for this achievement, I never would have replayed this mission. Achievements like this extend the game's life in a way that isn't cheap or gamepad-y. It was a sweet little cherry on top. Now, mothers, children, writers of Kotaku, be warned. I'm going to talk about the game's shocking content in a segment that I would like to call... Now, I will be spoiling a lot of the campaign here, so if you want to play the game nice and fresh, go ahead and skip to the timecode you see at the bottom of the screen. Now, this is where I'd imagine most people are probably going to disagree with me, and they'd have every right to, since I'm desensitized beyond belief. I'm sure you all remember that during the marketing period for Modern Warfare, they said that the content of this game was far too shocking. But it all left me feeling really underwhelmed. Let's start off with this scene here.
Get it off me! Please, get it
Damn,
off me!
Price, you're just gonna walk up.
Oh, fuck me.
Help me, I'm not one of them!
All stations, we have a man with a bomb strapped to him. Keep your distance.
Oh, God.
Look, open! I want to see my family. I want to see. Can you help him? I'm trying. Let me see my girl.
I
can't get it. No time. Help me! Help me! Wait. What are you doing?
No! Oh, shit, that's so fucked. Oh, that's so fucked. Oh, that perman. Oh, my God.
Oh shit! Oh shit, dude!
No!
This is one of the first moments that really sort of shocks people, and being the cold-hearted bastard that I am completely unfazed by this. Actually, no, you know what? To be fair, this scene did shock me 7 years ago. Now, bear with me here, this is all going somewhere, I promise. But do you remember that Rainbow Six Patriots gameplay trailer that came out? It started off inside a nice big cozy house. Your trophy wife with subtle jiggle physics comes in with a cupcake. Hey, it's your birthday. The husband and wife here clearly have a healthy relationship as they share some banter.
You know what I wish for.
Then boom! Some terrorists come in, they tie up your wife, they strap a bomb to you and tell you that you need to go blow yourself up at Times Square. Then whabang! The SEAL team intercepts you, the game shifts focus, and you are now in control of Thomas Clancy himself. Your objective is to get the guy with the bomb strapped to him and save him. After killing some terrorists and making your way up the bridge, you finally meet up with the birthday boy.
Listen. They've got my wife. They've got my kids.
Secure. Just hang tight till the bomb squad arrives.
Remote detonator. This is bad.
We're out of time. I'm sorry. Over here, now!
No, don't do this! No!
What did you do? What I had to do.
Now, even though this was just a proof of concept demo that never came out, at the time I found this to be very effective at eliciting shock. Since we spent time in this guy's shoes, you get to know him a little bit. We experience what kind of relationship he has with his wife. We know that he has a baby because, where else is all that milk gonna go? And also we can hear the baby crying after the terrorists bust in, which makes it all the more shocking when this guy is thrust into a suicide bombing situation that he wasn't prepared for and probably didn't deserve. It had a good build-up and a great payoff, and it genuinely surprised me. And like I said, I know that this is a demo for a game that never came out, and it's entirely possible that Infinity Ward didn't steal this scene. Although you gotta admit, they are eerily similar. And Call of Duty does have a long-running history of, let's say, Amy Schumering action scenes from other movies. But even if I hadn't ever seen the Rainbow Six Patriots gameplay demo, the hostage scene here from Modern Warfare still wouldn't have had any effect on me, because this guy's only on screen for like 30 seconds. We know nothing about him. He has no character, no buildup of any kind, just a couple throwaway lines of dialogue about his kids. Then he's dead, and that's it. What gets me most about this scene is that I feel like it was put into the game for no other reason than to shock people. This scene has no bearing on the plot. It isn't used as a tool to show us how evil the villain is. This guy's death didn't appear to weigh heavily on the central characters, and the decision to throw him over didn't have any consequences. If you were to remove this scene from the game completely, it wouldn't have any impact on the plot whatsoever. It simply exists to make you gasp. And I think that kinda cheapens it. And that's how I feel about most of this game's shocking moments. That they're mainly just kind of purposeless and cheap with no build-up. To be fair though, there was some appropriate use of shock, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I do take issue with the fact that the game repeatedly harms children to try and shock you. Not because it offends me to see a kid get killed, I couldn't care less. It's just that killing kids is a very forced and uncreative way of trying to elicit shock. and they play the kid card so many times over. I mean, seriously, anytime they want to shock you, they go for the jugular by doing something involving a kid. Child murder can be used to great effect when done properly.
No!
But when it isn't done with care, it can come off as cheap. Same goes for putting a dog in harm's way. It's a super easy way to make the audience feel an emotion without having to set anything up or build up any character. And I get what they're going for here, I do. I get that they want you to really feel the weight and consequences of war, to feel the collateral damage of battle, and understand the emotional toll that comes with all that. And that's something that Spec Ops: The Line pulled off really well. That game had a segment where you bomb your enemies with white phosphorus. It was your only choice for survival, but then the game forces you to walk through the carnage you inflicted on your enemies. You get to see the effect that this weapon has on the human body, which was a harsh dose of reality. And as you keep going, you see that you yourself accidentally killed civilians in the process, and that weighed very heavily on all the characters' psyche. It served a purpose to the story and managed to be shocking at the same time. That game pulled a lot of that stuff off really well. But back to Modern Warfare, the one time where I felt like the shock factor served the story really well was the mission where you play as a kid. Now, it didn't shock me personally because, like I said, I'm a heartless bastard. I actually found this mission to be pretty neat. You're in a building that had just been bombed. It's a little bit disorienting in here, and it's got your dead mom right next to you. But luckily, your dad pulls you out of the wreckage, and he's carrying you through all sorts of carnage. As the village is getting attacked and people are getting shot up, the presentation here is top-notch, and I felt like this was all very tense and effective. Then you get home, Daddy packs up his go bag, and as he's about to leave, a big Russian guy comes in and shoots him. So then you screw this Russian from behind and attempt to escape the village, where you see all the carnage the Russians inflicted. This whole segment is very effective because it serves a purpose. It shows us how close Farah and Hadir are with one another, while also informing us of their motivations. The Russians killed their mom, killed their dad, and eradicated all life in their village. So it comes as no surprise that Hadir wants to reciprocate by releasing that very same gas on the Russians. It's all show and no tell, which is exactly how storytelling should work. If all of the game's shock served a similar purpose to the story that this did, then I wouldn't be complaining. The hostage scene was fine too. It moved the story along, but again, it's just kind of putting a kid in danger to try and shock you, and there's only so many times you can pull the kid card, you know? But overall, I'd say the story was alright. It had a couple of twists in there. I was able to follow it with no issues, whereas previous Call of Duty games felt very convoluted. I almost never knew what was going on, but that's probably because I skipped all those loading screen briefs. Price was a pretty neat character. He seems like the type of guy who's completely detached from reality emotionally, but also understands how to get the job done. And he's appropriately badass. Pretty cool guy. Ultimately though, nothing in this game shocked me or even made me feel uncomfortable. But despite its lack of trying, Call of Duty has never shocked me. I remember playing the No Russian level back when I was in high school. It was just like, oh, okay, we're shooting civilians now? Better put down my Doritos, because I don't want to miss anybody. It just didn't faze me at all. And neither did the scene from Modern Warfare 3.
That's your daughter. You know she gets that from you.
Call of Duty is this arcadey first-person shooter with fast and snappy gameplay, stylized reload animations, and unstoppable badasses. I hate to use the ludonarrative dissonance critique, but I genuinely think it applies here, because the light and snappy feel of the gameplay just doesn't match up with the dark, gritty, and emotionally heavy tone that the game is going for. I feel that there's always sort of a clash there. Like during this waterboarding scene, I think I'm supposed to feel uncomfortable, but it's kinda tough to become immersed with the scene since my captor is literally praising me for avoiding the torture so well.
Nice. You're pretty good at this. That's enough for now.
You know, it's just kind of tone deaf, and it really didn't work for me. One minute you gotta jump out of a helicopter before it crashes, then the helicopter explodes and knocks off Captain Price's bucket hat. Then the next minute, a kid is getting smoked. But overall, the Call of Duty campaign was really good, if not one of the best campaigns in the series. It had a lot of memorable missions, the story was alright, and admittedly I'll never play through it again, but it was good, disposable fun. It kept me interested and very engaged throughout its 6-hour runtime. And that's all I want out of a Call of Duty campaign. I enjoy a nice little linear single-player experience, even if it is disposable. It doesn't need to be some masterfully written game changer, just has to be fun. And it was.
Enemy care package.
I don't have much perspective with Call of Duty's multiplayer, which might make my take on it a little bit unique. The first Call of Duty I ever played the multiplayer for more than 15 minutes was World War II. I spent, I don't know, maybe 2 hours on that game, and I had a pretty decent KDA. The maps were all mostly symmetrical and very easy to learn. Getting multi-kills and kill streaks felt effortless, and as a result, it didn't interest me since I felt like I was already relatively decent at it, with almost no Call of Duty multiplayer experience under my belt. And same goes for Black Ops 4. The base gunplay was fun, but I just never felt challenged or satisfied by it. It felt like a bare-bones, point-and-shoot experience. So going into Modern Warfare, I expected more of the same simplistic gameplay. Luckily though, my expectations were greatly exceeded. And I'm not gonna lie to ya, when I first started playing Modern Warfare's multiplayer, man, I struggled. I'm going up against people who've been playing Call of Duty for their entire life. Lack of map knowledge and not knowing the effective range that each weapon had played a big part in my struggle. Being 2 days behind a player base that had unlocked a good amount of weapons and attachments did too. But what I struggled with the most was learning the pacing of the game. I felt like every time I tried to be aggressive, I got punished because I was exposing myself to half a dozen sightlines. Or I'd run into a room where some guy was just camping and hard scoping the doorway. A true hero. And I didn't want to camp because, I ain't no bitch. But whenever I tried switching up my position, I'd get duked. I had a hard time. But I kept playing because I wanted to understand what I was doing wrong. I wanted to improve. So I pushed myself to keep playing. And eventually, I found a playstyle that uses a bit of aggression, but mostly revolved around controlling certain parts of a map. Which, to be clear, is far different from camping. Camping is a coward's game. We all know that. So this right here is me controlling the map. I have an excellent vantage point up here. Not only do I have the high ground, but I can also see about 2/3 of the map at any given moment. However, that also means that 2/3 of the map can see me as well. When I'm up here, I'm more exposed than a pedophile in a park. So I need to try and predict the enemy spawns as best I can, and I gotta try to stay mobile, because after I kill somebody, the jig's up. And they know that I'm up here giving them the business. And they're gonna wanna come stop my kill streak. So I try to get a little tricky with them. And I really like doing this. Sort of patrolling the high ground, hunting people down below that don't expect me to be up here. Playing like this is a huge risk, but also yields a huge reward. And to be fair, this isn't anything new. A lot of multiplayer maps throughout a lot of games have a hotspot that you want to control for maximum dominance. The fact that you can do something like this adds a lot of decision making and depth to the maps. And at first I hated the map design. I felt overwhelmed by the sheer amount of angles the enemies could have on me. I was always getting shot in the back or shot in the sides, and I felt this constant pressure like I was being aimed at all times. I mean, look at this.
Fight harder.
This certainly got my dilly in a pickle. Getting killed like that is simply ridiculous. But once I understood that angles like that existed, I started using them myself. And after a little while, I started to learn how to more safely traverse each map by limiting my exposure to the other team. Going out into the open is almost always a death sentence. It's clear to me that each map has safe routes and lanes in place for you to traverse that'll minimize the odds of somebody seeing you. You just gotta know where they are and when to use them. Hell, I'm still discovering new routes or angles each time I replay a map, which is great. And as I kept playing, I started to develop a sense of where an enemy might be camping. The bottom line is, the more I played, the more I learned, the better I got. This game has a learning curve, man, which was something that I felt World War II and Black Ops 4 were severely lacking. but we all know the map design is far from perfect. I think Infinity Ward might have gone a bit too far in an effort to distance themselves from the 3-lane map design that people have gotten sick of, because the sheer amount of sight lines you're exposed to at any given time is staggering. Almost anyone can see you from almost anywhere. And I really don't think it would hurt the maps all that much if they maybe boarded up a window or two, or maybe even sealed off a hallway or something. I mean, it's great that they've given the players so many options, but there definitely comes a point where we have too many choices, which granted is a much better problem to have than having too few choices. But dialing some of the angles back a little bit might be beneficial. And you know, if it doesn't work out like I think it will, then they can just unboard the windows in a future patch. But something does need to be tweaked, because now more than ever, campers are running rampant. They pop down a claymore, go prone, and pitch a tent, and wait. It's really not fun to play against, but I can't blame these people for camping. I mean, it's the safest way to play the game, and people like to pad out their stats. Plus, leaving their cozy corner and facing the music out in the open can be terrifying. And to add on to that, there's really no punishment for camping, apart from the occasional Xbox Live message. I think this could easily be fixed by just having the claymores make a sound. Like if you could hear an enemy's claymore beeping as you approached a doorway, you could start making decisions to counter whoever could be in the room, and it would even the playing field a little bit. And now that we're talking about the negatives here, I gotta talk about the spawns, which are downright wacky. Developers have had over a decade to perfect how spawns work. I'm just baffled that in today's day and age, me and an enemy can literally spawn in the same spot. It's just really frustrating. The netcode can also be a little bit wonky at times. Sometimes it feels like shots just don't register, but so far these are very rare occurrences. But when you've gotten fed up with regular quick play, you can move on to gunfight. And let me tell you, I love this game type to death. The rules are simple. It's 2v2. There's no regenerative health. Each round goes for 35 seconds. Once that time is up, a flag spawns. Cap the flag and you win. If nobody captures the flag, then whoever has more health wins the round. Everybody has the same weapons and attachments, and after every 2 rounds, the game gives everybody in the lobby an entirely new loadout. The constant change-up keeps you on your toes and forces you to adapt, learn new weapons, and assume a different playstyle. You have to be so thoughtful and tactical about what moves you make. Communicating with your teammate is of utmost importance as well.
Got one. Left side is up.
Head glitch left side.
You're the
One
last
health.
man standing.
Flash him and he's dead, literally.
10 seconds.
As the match progresses, you start to sort of learn your opponent's habits or preferred routes and use that information to exploit them.
But he likes to open up with a head glitch.
Oh no, dude. It's up to you, man.
Oh, they're too predictable. I'm gonna go to head glitch. He's not gonna expect it.
Enemies in the area.
Oh, it's beautiful.
When you fight against more skilled opponents, they learn your habits as well, and they'll start trying to predict what you're gonna do. So then it's on you to shake things up and try a different approach. But then they adapt to your new playstyle as well, so there's this constant sort of cat and mouse type game that you're all playing as you're constantly trying to be unpredictable. But Gunfight isn't perfect. It's got some issues of its own.
See him?
Oh.
Oh!
Most of my problems with it come down to the maps. I really don't like Hill. It's just too open and has too many bushes, which can make finding the other team difficult. And on top of that, sometimes people's name tags will pop up even when you can't actually see the enemy. The openness of this map makes it feel really awkward for me to play. But on the opposite end of that, there's Gulag, which I don't like because it's too small and claustrophobic. I feel like I don't have many options in the beginning of each round. I always feel so limited here, you know? These two maps really just don't click with me. Maybe after I play on them some more I can find a groove with them, but overall, the 2v2s are simply magical.
Yes!
Gunfight lends itself to so many unique and memorable moments. It's so simplistic, but has so much depth to it. And it's something that I'll definitely keep playing long after I post this video. And to finish things off, we got Ground War. the brand new 32v32 game type. And I'll cut to the chase. I've only played 2 matches of Ground War because I seriously do not care for it. I loved Bad Company 2 back in the day, and this here just really doesn't scratch that itch. It's really lacking some destructible environments, and I just have no desire to play this mode at all because I was having so much fun in quick play and gunfight. Ground War is really not for me. Oh, hang on a second. I nearly forgot to mention the new weapon attachments. I love the amount of customization you can do to a weapon. Being able to have 5 attachments and perks on one weapon gives the game a nice little extra bit of depth, and it keeps giving me an incentive to come back, because I always look forward to seeing what new unlocks are around the corner for my gun, and I enjoy incrementally making my weapon better bit by bit as I level it up. And I gotta give praise to the way you unlock emblems, charms, and weapons by completing daily challenges or missions. It gives you a good reason to log in every day, even though the progression of the challenges was bugged for the first 2 weeks of this game's launch. Lost a lot of time to that, but overall this is a good system, because if I see somebody with a specific banner, I know that he's earned it, as opposed to previous Call of Duties where somebody would unlock a banner because they used mommy's credit card. Spec Ops was one of my favorite parts of Modern Warfare 2. I really enjoyed tackling those little bite-sized missions alone or with a friend. There were so many missions to play too. It was a wonderful showcase of variety. And this new version of Spec Ops is, well, it's in shambles. The new Spec Ops is challenging, which, don't get me wrong, I love a challenge. But the problem is that these missions are far too long. So instead of having 20 or so smaller missions like we used to, we now have 4 missions, and each one of them is loaded with about half a dozen objectives. And these objectives do provide a good amount of variety, as one mission had us driving a mongoose up to a plane, boarding the plane, recreating the Mile High Club, and then jumping out of the plane to parachute back down to the ground. You'd think that jumping out of an exploding plane would be the perfect place to end the level. But no, it just kept going. Now we've got to bring this bomb somewhere. Don't know where exactly though, since we failed the mission. But that's not a big deal, we'll just restart at the checkpoint, right? Oh no, there's no checkpoints. We just spent 25 minutes on this level, and now we need to start it all over again from the very beginning. That just doesn't sit right, you know? Spec Ops desperately needs a checkpoint system because it ain't exactly easy. Some of the enemies have armor making them tougher to kill. Add on to that the enemies literally never stop spawning. They swarm you non-stop, you never have any time to breathe, and every once in a while, the game throws a juggernaut at you. And these guys are a total pain in the ass to kill, and they deal a lot of damage. Add on to that the fact that this game type is severely unpolished, especially within the first 2 weeks of release. After you died, you couldn't use your equipment or kill streaks despite the fact that they were down there in your inventory. You could mash the D-pad all you like, the game just wouldn't let you use them. The invisible walls around this plane are downright laughable. It really felt like I was navigating an out-of-bounds portion of the map, like I wasn't supposed to be here. The enemies in this segment gave Actman here a severe case of the downs, but I can't really blame him, because they were shooting at us through the floor. How are you supposed to combat something like this? In its current form, Spec Ops is incredibly unfair, poorly designed, and for 2 weeks it was literally impossible to complete these missions. But even with all these flaws, it's still kinda fun, especially when you get together with a couple of buds, but that doesn't make up for the state this launched in, you know? It's a very underwhelming mode that, quite honestly, just feels tacked on. The campaign is great, the multiplayer is good, and has potential to be even better, but Spec Ops is still in a pretty bad state. So I gotta give Modern Warfare a 7 out of 10. And that score will go up once the issues with the multiplayer get ironed out and Spec Ops runs a bit more smoothly. I would like to give it a higher score because I really like the game, but it's just not quite there yet. It still feels really unpolished. They are patching this game like crazy. Sometimes there'll be 2 updates in 1 week. They're working hard to get the game where it needs to be, which is really good. But that doesn't change the fact that this game should have worked better on launch. Part of why I like the game so much is because this is all relatively new to me. I've never really given Call of Duty's multiplayer a chance before, So as a result, I don't have much to compare it to. But since I'm on the outs with Destiny, I've got a lot more wiggle room with my free time. So I figured, why the hell not? I'll just go all in on COD for a bit. And so far, I haven't regretted it. But that's another thing. I've pretty much quit Destiny altogether, and doing so has made me much happier. So because of that, maybe I'm being more lenient on Call of Duty than I should be. Who knows? But what I do know is that for the first time in 15 years, I had a lot of fun playing Call of Duty's multiplayer, and I'm looking forward to playing it some more. That's something I thought I'd never say in my life. But that got me thinking that since I'm typically not a fan of Call of Duty, maybe that means that this is a bad COD game, because I actually like it. And it seems that the general, let's call them CODians, isn't all too happy with this game. People are trashing it left and right. It seems like a lot of people on Metacritic are under the impression that the campaign is nothing but anti-Russian propaganda, which I'm not at all equipped to properly address. But I personally don't think this game has anything against Russians. It's a fictional story set in a fictional universe. Then with the multiplayer, people are constantly complaining about the meta and the map design, and you know what? I get it. This game is frustrating. Each time I boot it up, there's always something that ends up pissing me off. I fully understand why these people are upset, and I think they have every right to be angry. They're particularly furious about the very open maps, but me, I think that this sort of map design is far better than what we got out of the last two games. But you know what? At the end of the day, Infinity Ward went for it, man. They kept the boots on the ground gameplay that the fans love so much. They ditched the 3-lane map design that the fans were growing really tired of. They tried something different and implemented a full-on battlefield game type. And they introduced a new team doubles aspect that is so different from every other mode the game offers. I feel like they tried to make this game stand out from the rest of the games in the franchise, and I think that that alone deserves praise. Infinity Ward were able to make small innovations on the franchise while still staying true to Call of Duty's roots. And that's all I gotta say about Call of Duty. So leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content. I'm getting close to 50,000 and it's making me real itchy. Join my Discord if you're able-bodied, and maybe consider becoming a Patreon. These fine fellas and lady make it much easier for me to focus on my own content, and we're getting real close to the first goal, which will involve monthly drunk streams from myself, and people love it when I drink. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
Hold on.
Oh my god, you're
Hold on.
anxiety.
Wait for it.
He's on my depot. I
10
guess.
seconds. Enemy movement.
360.
Go. Secure that objective.
Holy shit.
Enemy on the objective. Let's move.
Oh, come on! Oh no! Oh, my heart! She pounds!
Still alive.